The stinging pain of cold water rushing into his nose hadn't faded when Leo jolted awake at his desk. It felt like he'd just surfaced from a long, drowning nightmare, but the phantom ache in his bones told him it had been real. Laughter echoed from the back of the lecture hall. The ponytail of the girl in front of him brushed against the edge of her textbook. This was September 12th, 2025, the first lecture of his sophomore year. The same afternoon from his past life that had sent him spiraling into the abyss. 1. The Saint's Deception. Leo, a voice, sweet as honey but laced with a well-practiced innocence, came from behind him. Leo turned, his eyes landing on the stunningly beautiful campus queen, Sophia Reed. Sophia Reed. The name sent a jolt through him. The event of the past few minutes felt like a fever dream. He stared at the woman before him, a woman with the face of a saint and the heart of a snake, as the memories of his previous life played back in his mind on a horrifying loop. The first time Leo really noticed Sophia was during a torrential downpour at the start of their freshman year of high school. She was running down the hallway, clutching a stack of notebooks. Her thin, white blouse was soaked through, clinging to her back and revealing the pale, sharp line of her spine. On some strange impulse, he had taken off his own jacket and handed it to her. When she turned, he saw the flicker of panic and suspicion in her eyes. He later learned her story. Her father, an alcoholic, had died young. Her mother was chronically ill, and the family scraped by on the meager earnings from a greasy spoon diner on the corner. She was always the first to arrive at school to wipe down the blackboard, her backpack filled with day-old sandwiches from 7-Eleven for lunch. He'd seen her hide the FAFSA application deep inside her thickest textbook, as if ashamed. Leo started to adapt. He would happen to stay late to help clean on the days she was on duty. He swapped his designer sneakers for $20 canvas shoes. He even intentionally bombed a midterm exam, anything to make her believe they were from the same world. Sophia, this is for you. He'd casually slipped an envelope filled with cash in her desk drawer, covering it with a piece of scratch paper on which he'd written, "I heard your mom needs expensive nutritional supplements." She had stared at the note for a long time, the tips of her ears turning a telltale shade of red. That day, for the first time, she walked home beside him. That beautiful illusion shattered on the first day of college. Sophia stood on the red carpet of the welcome gala, wearing a white dress he'd given her. He'd had a friend buy it for him in Paris. It was a designer piece, tailored to perfectly hide her sharp collarbones, a subtle sign of her malnutrition. But when a campus reporter asked her if the rumors about her having a trust fund boyfriend were true, she just smiled and shook her head. "A boyfriend? I don't have one." Leo, standing at the back of the crowd, clenched his fists but said nothing. He watched her weave her way through the elite circles of Northwood University, charming the student body president and the heads of every exclusive club. Her $20 heels were replaced by designer brands. When he anonymously sent the money for her mother's surgery, she sent him a text. "Stop pestering me, you fucking charity case. We're not in the same league anymore." The breaking point came at a fraternity party. Chadwick Prescott, with his arm wrapped tightly around her waist, sneered at the bar. "I hear you had a pathetic simp in high school." "Yeah, dressed worse than a homeless guy," she said, swirling the ice in her cocktail. Her glittery eyeshadow caught the light as she glanced over at Leo with cold amusement. He was so whipped he'd probably crawl under the table if I asked. It was pathetic but hilarious. Hilarious is right. I want to see it. Chad's eyes lit up with a cruel excitement. "Go on. Use whatever tricks you have to get him to do it. If you succeed, I'll take care of you. You'll have more money than you can spend." Sophia shot Chad a sultry look, her tongue darting out to wet her lips. "Of course, Chad. Anything you want." In front of him, she had no shame, no bottom line. She was like a dog wagging its tail for its master. 2. The Devil's Whisper. Swaying her hips, Sophia moved through the party. She was wearing a designer dress Chad had bought her, her every movement an imitation of the wealthy socialites she desperately wanted to be. She glided over to Leo, her mind racing, trying to figure out the best way to manipulate him into this final, humiliating act. A flicker of contempt, quickly hidden, passed through her eyes. "Leo, can you help me with something?" Sophia's voice was a pathetic, pleading whisper. She cornered him near the back exit, her fingers, cold with sweat, gripping his wrist. Her face was a mask of desperation. They said if you just play along with this little joke, they'll get my mom a private room at the hospital. Leo remembered how he had hesitated. Then, for her, he'd reluctantly nodded. Back then, he didn't know it was the beginning of the end. Under the harsh glare of the party's spotlights, Chad pointed at the floor. Crawl around the table 3 times, he laughed, and bark like a dog while you do it. As Sophia lowered her eyes, Leo saw her eyelashes tremble. It's okay, he remembered whispering, as long as it helps you. As his knees scraped against the sticky, beer-soaked floor, he heard the snickers from the crowd. When Chad propped his feet up on the table, he heard the distinct sound of phones being raised to record. And when he finally finished, looking up to see Sophia raising a glass of champagne to toast with the others, he heard her voice, clear as a bell. Wasn't his acting great? I told you, for a broke loser like him, you just have to give him a crumb of affection and he'll act like a trained dog. Champagne dripped down her chin, staining the front of her expensive dress. Leo suddenly flashed back to that rainy day in high school, to the image of her running down the hall, clutching her notebooks. He finally understood. The panic in her eyes back then wasn't suspicion of a stranger. It was the disgust of seeing someone she thought was one of her own kind. What? He grabbed her wrist, but she snatched it away as if his touch burned her. What? She laughed, pulling a crumpled $20 bill from her purse and slapping it against his cheek. Because you're disgusting, that's why. So fucking poor, yet you pretend to be some kind of tragic hero. Do you really think you're worthy? The crowd erupted in laughter. Someone grabbed his backpack and dumped its contents on the floor. Cheap pens and worn-out notebooks scattered everywhere. Hey, everyone, come watch the charity case have a meltdown. And Sophia, in her designer heels, stepped right on top of his bag, grinding her heel into it, leaving a faint, dirty mark. The Charles River shimmered under the 3 a.m. city lights. Leo remembered feeling for the crumpled financial aid form in his pocket, the one he just helped her fill out the day before. The last message on his phone was from half an hour ago. It was from her. Stay out of my life from now on. You're trash. He thought of his 17-year-old self, of the warmth that lingered on his palm after handing her a jacket in the rain. Some lights, he realized, were never meant to shine for him. Suddenly, a car had sped towards him, its headlights blinding. The impact threw him into the rushing current. Pain seared through his body, leaving him unable to struggle as he sank into the cold, black depths. He was 20 years old and had loved Sophia Reed for 3 years. She was 20 years old and had personally stomped his soul into the mud. His thoughts snapped back to the present. The reborn Leo stared back at Sophia, who was looking at him expectantly, asking him why he was so quiet. His gaze on her grew colder, the rage in his heart threatening to boil over. This repulsive woman. Today, she was wearing a white chiffon blouse, the cuffs still stained with what looked like wine. He finally understood. Sophia's cold elegance was reserved only for broke losers like him. For the rich and powerful, she was more than willing to get on her knees. Sophia tapped her manicured fingernails on his desk, her eyes tilting up in a look of perfect, calculated coyness. There was a hint of anticipation, of certainty in her gaze. The freshman welcome gala is tomorrow night. Can you help me set up? Though it was phrased as a question, she was sure he wouldn't refuse. For years, Leo had been nothing more than her loyal simp, a dog on a leash. Disgusting. This sickening woman, still putting on an act in front of me. How could my past self have ever fallen for such a vile person? Leo cursed himself and the woman standing before him. To be reborn into this exact moment. The moment she invites him to his own destruction. But to him, it wasn't an invitation. It was the devil's whisper. How could someone be so cruel, taking pleasure in torturing and humiliating someone who had been her friend for years? Leo swore he would have his revenge. With his real identity as the heir to the Carter Corporation, crushing Sophia would be as easy as stepping on an ant. But he was in no hurry. He was going to play with her, let her sink slowly into despair. Only that would be enough to quell the hatred burning in his soul. And another thing was becoming clear in his reborn mind. The car crash was no accident. Putting together the pieces from his past life, he was certain his death had been a carefully orchestrated plot. Sophia was just a pawn. The person who had him thrown into the river was someone else entirely. A wave of suggestive hooting from the other students broke his train of thought. Leo stared at Sophia's lips, painted a pale, shimmery pink, and suddenly remembered how his own ears had burned with excitement at this very moment in his past life. He had thought it was the campus queen finally returning his affections, not knowing that half an hour later, she would be in the dressing room, laughing with her new friends. That broke loser? He'd crawl under a table if I asked. Sure. He heard his own voice, laced with an icy chill. Just as a smile bloomed on Sophia's face, he shot his hand out and grabbed her slender wrist. With a surprised cry, she stumbled forward. Leo used the momentum to push her down, pinning her against the edge of the desk. "What are you doing?" Sophia asked, her voice laced with panic. Leo didn't answer. As the entire class gasped, he brought his other hand to her face, his fingers covering her shimmering, repulsive lips. He swiped his thumb across her trembling mouth, hearing the small whimper that escaped her throat. "Not a bad act," he said, pulling away. He casually wiped the pink gloss from his fingers onto his sleeve. "Great performance, but I'm not interested in playing your games anymore." Sophia's face went white. She stared at him, her fingers twisting the hem of her chiffon blouse. Are you insane?" "Insane? Sorry, I can't accept your invitation. I've got a lot of other girls to take care of, and you're just one in a long line," Leo announced loudly, a smirk playing on his lips. "Next time you want something, come to my room privately. Don't make a public spectacle of it." He then reached into his desk, pulled out a black credit card, and slapped it on the table. "This should cover my tab at Aura last night. Make sure your new sugar daddy pays for it. Oh, and one more thing." He leaned in close, his voice a cold whisper only she could hear. "That $250,000 deposit for your mother's hospital stay, I had my guy cancel it." The girl's pupils contracted, and the blood drained from her face. Leo knew she understood. In his past life, she had secretly worked at a nightclub to scrape together money for her mother's surgery. And that so-called sugar daddy was none other than Chad Prescott, the same man who was going to make him crawl under a table. "This is just the beginning," Leo said, his face a mask of cold amusement. "I'm going to enjoy ruining you." Ignoring the shocked expressions of everyone in the room, Leo turned and walked out of the classroom. As Leo strode out, wiping the last of the pink gloss from his fingers, a collective gasp filled the lecture hall. Sophia stood frozen by the desk. Chad Prescott, his face already a thundercloud, blocked the doorway, the sound of his alligator skin loafers scraping against the floor grating on the nerves. "Leo, you think you could just walk out of here after publicly humiliating my girl?" "Your girl?" Leo raised an eyebrow, tossing a sleek black card in the air. "Then why was the Chanel bag you gave her just authenticated as a fake on the real?" A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Sophia whipped around, her eyes wide as Leo held up his phone. On the screen was the authentication report. The classic flap bag she treasured was brazenly labeled, "Counterfeit. Estimated cost, $40." Chad's eyes narrowed, his hand instinctively going to the inside of his suit jacket, where the refund notification from the luxury boutique was tucked away. "Chad, what's he talking about?" Her voice trembled, her fingers tracing the shoddy stitching on the bag strap. "You said your friend got it for you in Paris." "So what if I did?" Chad suddenly exploded, backhanding her across the face. "You cheap bitch, getting a fake is more than you deserve. Did you really think you were worthy of the real thing?" The slap echoed in the stunned silence. Sophia stumbled back, knocking over a thermos. Hot water splashed on her leg, but she didn't seem to notice. Chad, Leo taunted. "Can't even bring yourself to spend real money on a woman? Though I bet you got plenty of what you wanted for cheap. You're fucking dead." Chad threw a punch at Leo, but Leo caught his wrist with effortless ease. "You should hit the gym," Leo sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "A body this soft from booze and women isn't going to do you any good in a fight." He shoved Chad aside and left the chaotic classroom behind him. On the way back to his dorm, Leo's mind was racing. He needed to find out who was behind all this, and fast. Forget it, he thought. I'll just have her do it. She is my fiancée, after all. 3. A dark bargain air in the VIP suite of Aura was thick and suffocating. Sophia knelt on the plush wool carpet, her knees digging into a champagne cork that Chad had carelessly tossed aside. The metallic tang of blood rose in her throat. The tip of the man's leather shoe pressed against her collarbone, the diamond cufflink on his shirt digging a red mark into her chest. Use your tongue and lick these words clean. I am Chad Prescott's dog. The neon lights above cast a psychedelic glow, making the humiliating sentence, written in spilled red wine, look like a trail of blood on the floor. Sophia stared at the last letter of the word dog and suddenly thought of the way Leo wrote on the blackboard in class. His handwriting was always strong and confident, not like Chad's, which was greasy with new money arrogance. What are you waiting for? Chad grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked her head back. Her earring caught, sending a sharp pain across her scalp. You want me to call the hospital right now and have them stop your mother's liver medication? Just then, her phone vibrated. She pulled it from the loose neckline of her dress. As the screen lit up, Chad's face contorted with rage. It was a message from Leo, containing 2 video files. The first showed Chad dropping a white powder into her drink. The second showed him signing a forged document titled, Sophia Reed's Voluntary Service Agreement. Where the fuck did you get this? Chad roared, snatching the phone. The screen's reflection illuminated his twisted features. Did you put Leo up to this? Huh. He slammed her back against the sofa, his hands closing around her throat. Red wine from her overturned glass seeped into her dress, sticky and nauseating. She saw the text Leo had sent with the videos. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., copies of these will be sent to your father and the district attorney. He had laid this trap long ago, just waiting for her and Chad to tear each other apart. I didn't, she gasped, struggling for air. Leo found out himself. He knew you drugged me. Chad, let go, I can help you fix this. Fix this. Chad laughed coldly, his thumb brushing against the artery in her neck. Why do you think Leo is keeping you around? He just wants to watch me ruin you before he throws you away. Like a broken toy, he has to stomp on a few times to feel satisfied. His words hit her like a physical blow. Sophia remembered Leo's words in the classroom that afternoon. Next time you want something, come to my room privately. The contempt in his voice was identical to the look in Chad's eyes right now. She thought she was using them, but it turned out she was the most pathetic pawn of all. Let go of me, she screamed, a sudden burst of adrenaline fueling her. Her nails raked across Chad's face. You think I actually love you? If it weren't for my mother, I wouldn't even look at a fat-headed idiot like you without wanting to puke. The man froze for a split second, then smashed a wine bottle over her head. The sound of shattering glass mingled with her scream. Warm liquid streamed down her forehead, blurring her vision. Chad grabbed her blood-soaked hair and forced her face down into the wine-scrawled words. Lick it clean for me, or I'll make a call right now and let your mother die. Her phone vibrated again. It was a location screenshot from Leo, showing Chad's current location at an illegal, high-stakes poker game in the club's basement. Suddenly, Sophia started to laugh, a broken, bitter sound. Blood and wine mixed in her mouth, the taste salty and vile. She looked up, letting shards of glass dig into her palms. Chad, you want to know what's waiting for you downstairs? Reporters and the police. You wouldn't dare. The man's pupils shrank. In the distance, the faint wail of a siren could be heard. Sophia watched him scramble to gather his things and felt a surge of grim satisfaction. The hunter looked so ridiculous when the prey started to bite back. Why wouldn't I? She used the sofa to pull herself to her feet, the strap of her ruined dress slipping to reveal a swath of bruised skin. I've got nothing left to lose. But you, she held up her phone, the golden boy of the Prescott Empire, you're about to take a little trip downtown. Chad didn't have time to argue. He grabbed his jacket and bolted, leaving Sophia standing alone in the wreckage. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Leo. See you at the gala tomorrow. I'm not done playing with you yet. Sophia collapsed, her body exposed and battered, hitting the carpet like a puppet with its strings cut. Not bad. The figure's actually pretty good. No wonder the great Chad Prescott was so obsessed with you. Leo's voice was like a scalpel, sharp and cold, cutting through the thick air of the suite. Sophia's blood ran cold. She looked up to see him leaning against the doorframe, casually twirling a familiar diamond cufflink between his fingers, the one Chad had torn off, now glinting mockingly in his hand. Leo, what are you doing here? She stammered. instinctively trying to cover herself with the tattered remains of her dress. He kicked a nearby wine bottle, sending it rolling away. The Bordeaux spilled across the carpet, a dark river that looked just like the blood that had trickled from his mouth when he knelt before her in his past life. "What's wrong?" He walked towards her slowly, his dress shoes crunching on the broken glass. "You were screaming so passionately under Chad a minute ago. Are you suddenly shy now that you see me? Did you think you were still a saint in my eyes?" He lunged forward and grabbed her chin, forcing her head up. "Let me see. This mouth that knows how to say you're disgusting. What pretty word can it come up with now?" Sophia tried to bite him, but froze when she saw him raise his phone. The screen showed a live feed from a security camera. Chad was sneaking into the underground parking garage, followed closely by two burly men in masks, the Prescott family's private security. "You think he was afraid of the cops?" Leo sneered, his thumb brushing over her lips. "He was afraid of me exposing him for attempted murder, for example. The car crash 3 months ago that almost killed me. It was like being struck by lightning." Sophia remembered that autumn day last year when Leo was hit by an out-of-control car at the campus gate. Everyone had thought it was a tragic accident. Now, seeing the cold fury in his eyes, she recalled the fleeting, sinister smile on Chad's face that day. "No, I didn't know." "You didn't know?" He released her and pulled a photograph from his jacket, flicking it at her face. In the photo, Chad was handing a thick stack of cash to a driver. The background was an auto repair shop owned by the Prescott family. The license plate was fake, but the engine's serial number. Leo grabbed her hand and pressed it against a faint scar on his abdomen. "This, however, is very real." "Talk," Leo said, unwinding his tie and wrapping it around her neck, pulling it tight enough to make her gasp for air. "Why did the Prescott family want me dead? Was it because of my father's hostile takeover 20 years ago?" The tie tightened, and black spots danced in her vision. She remembered Chad's drunken ramblings, something about the Carters stole our land, and that old bastard deserved to die. Now, in her terror, the fragments pieced themselves together into a horrifying picture. The business rivalries of the previous generation had sealed the tragic fate of their own. It was Chad's father. "He said your dad stole their development deal." She finally choked out. "He said he wanted to make you feel what's like to lose everything." Leo's pupils constricted. The answer confirmed his deepest suspicions. His mother's death in a car crash hadn't been an accident. It was a meticulously planned murder by the Prescotts. His fingers trembled, but when Sophia tried to grab his wrist, he shoved her violently onto the sofa. "So you just went along with it?" He ripped off her remaining shoulder strap, his eyes landing on the bite marks Chad had left on her chest. A wave of nausea rose in his throat. "Trading your body for information, trading my heart for your mother's medicine. You really are pathetic." Sophia shook her head, sobbing, begging for his forgiveness. "Too bad. Not only am I alive, but I'm going to wipe the Prescott family off the face of the earth. And your mother, she'll be disappearing very soon, too." The words were an icicle to her heart. Sophia looked up and saw a transaction reversal notification on his phone screen. The $200,000 she had just received had been intercepted and refunded by Leo with a single click. "You wouldn't." She lunged at him, trying to claw at his face, but he pinned her against the wall with one hand. Leo stared into the absolute despair in her eyes and was suddenly reminded of that rainy day in high school. Her eyes had held a spark of light back then, not like now, clouded with nothing but filthy ambition. "I would," he said, releasing her. He pulled a black card from his pocket and tossed it onto her open wound. "This is for your mother's liver transplant, but on one condition." He leaned in, his nose almost touching her trembling eyelashes. "At the gala tomorrow, you'll tell everyone about the Prescott family's crimes. In detail." Sophia stared at the platinum logo on the card. She remembered Chad boasting that the Carter Corporation's black card could open any door in the world. The sirens grew louder. As Leo turned to leave, he added one last whisper. "And if you try any tricks, I will make you watch your mother take her last breath." The door slammed shut. Sophia slid to the floor, the fleur-de-lis on the black card searing her vision. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Chad. "Bitch, if you dare say a word, I'll have my men find your mother." She looked at the text, then at the black card in her hand, and began to laugh. Some sins can only be paid for in blood, and her blood had been dirty for a very long time. 4. The stage of judgment. Backstage at the freshman welcome gala, the air was thick with the cloying scent of cheap hairspray. Sophia stared at her reflection, applying lipstick with a trembling hand. The nude shade bled past the lines of her lips, looking like the faint smear of blood on Leo's mouth when he knelt before her in his past life. She slammed the lipstick down and saw Chloe approaching with a Chanel gift box. "Sophia, look, it's the latest Hermes bag from Chad." Chloe's voice was filled with envy. "He said he's going to propose to you on stage tonight. Look at this diamond clasp. It's even bigger than the one he gave me last week." Sophia ran a finger over the camellia on the box, a cold smile touching her lips. "What good was any of this now?" "Soph," Chloe said, grabbing her wrist. "Do you think Leo just snapped yesterday? Why would he suddenly? Don't mention his name." Sophia cut her off, her voice sharp. "Can you give us a minute? Chad is coming, and I need to talk to him." Chloe nodded and left just as Chad stormed in, his face a mask of fury. A moment later, the sound of shattering porcelain echoed from the dressing room. Sophia had hurled the Chanel compact at Chad. The gilded powder case rolled to a stop by his custom leather shoes, just like the cash he had thrown in her face the night before. "You said you would handle it," she shrieked, grabbing his tie. "Now the entire school has seen those videos. The police are going to be here any minute. Let go of me." Chad shoved her away, his cufflinks scratching her skin. "Stop playing the innocent victim. You were the one who faked the financial aid forms. You were the one who sold yourself at those parties. And you were the one who used Leo." He leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. "Did you really think I would marry a broke bitch like you? You were just a toy. Did you actually take me seriously?" The world went black for a second. His words were a hammer blow, reminding her of the time he'd said the exact same thing in a hotel room, right after she'd had an abortion for him, while she was still bleeding. "Chad Prescott, I hope you rot in hell." She grabbed a champagne bottle from the vanity and swung it at him. The man roared with anger and slapped her hard, his ring splitting her lip. The salty taste of blood filled her mouth. "Bitch," he screamed, grabbing her hair and slamming her head against the wall. "If you weren't so good in bed, I would have thrown you to those disgusting old men a long time ago." "Let her go." Chloe screamed from the doorway, but fell silent under Chad's menacing glare. He pulled out his phone and played a video. It showed Sophia, on her knees, lighting a cigarette for a balding man, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Mr. Wong, how about another glass of the 82 Lafite? If I send this to your mother," Chad sneered, "you think the shock might just give her a heart attack?" Sophia's legs gave out. Her mother's condition was fragile. Just last night, she had lied to the old woman, telling her she'd found a respectable job. Footsteps approached in the hall. Chad let her go, wiping a speck of blood from his ring. "Remember, if you rat me out, your whole family goes down with me." Chad, with a surge of strength she didn't know she had, she lunged forward and bit his earlobe. He howled in pain and swung his fist, but just then, the dressing room door was kicked open. Leo stood there, flanked by two lawyers in sharp suits. His eyes scanned the trashed room, settling on the trickle of blood on Sophia's lip. His pupils narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Mr. Carter," Chad said, his tone instantly switching to one of groveling subservience. "This is just a misunderstanding. We were just having a little fight." "A misunderstanding?" Leo tossed a file onto the table. The title on the cover, "Criminal Complaint. Chadwick Prescott Rape," made the blood drain from Chad's face. Security footage shows you drugging Ms. Reed on November 7th, 2024, and then forging her signature on a consent form. Sophia's head snapped up. She had thought she'd just had too much to drink that night and blacked out. It had been him all along. And this, Leo threw down another photo, this one showing Chad dropping white powder into her drink. "You think destroying the hard drive was enough? I had my people recover everything from the cloud, including the audio recordings of you threatening Sophia to make her frame me." Chad dropped to his knees, grabbing Leo's leg. "Leo, please, our fathers are old friends. Please, let me go." "Old friends?" Leo sneered, pressing his foot down on Chad's hand until he cried out. "My father told me that if you see a Prescott family dog, you put it down." As security guards dragged Chad away, he twisted around and screamed at Sophia, "You think he's any better?" Before he could finish, Leo had grabbed Sophia's wrist and pinned her against the wall. She could smell the scent of cedarwood and something metallic like blood on him. He leaned in, his voice a low, chilling whisper for her ears only. He's right, you know. I knew everything all along. But you want to know the funny part? His fingers tilted her chin up, forcing her to look into his eyes, which burned with a cold fire. I want to let you dance on the highest pedestal, just so I could be the one to personally kick it out from under you. I wanted you to see just how pathetic you look when you come crashing back down into the gutter. Sophia finally broke, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't know if she was crying for Chad's betrayal, Leo's cruelty, or for the stupid, tragic girl who had been caught between them. Mr. Carter. Chloe's voice trembled. Just last week, she had been laughing at Leo's canvas shoes. Now she noticed the Patek Philippe watch peeking out from his cuff, the same one she'd seen in a financial news article about the chairman of the Carter Corporation. Ms. Reed, Leo said, holding up his phone to show a bank transfer record. The head of your mother's hospital ward just admitted to taking a bribe from Chad to pass off a standard room as a VIP suite. Oh, and he took a step closer. She smelled the faint, expensive scent of Creed cologne on him, the one she had once coveted but could never afford. You thought you could use my money to save your mother and then trample all over me with a clear conscience? He pulled out a worn, yellowed receipt. This is from July 15th, 2024. A cash withdrawal of $300,000, which you signed for at the city hospital. You said, I'll pay you back as soon as I can. Well, I'm here to collect. Sophia felt dizzy. She remembered that stormy night when Leo had burst into the hospital room, soaking wet, holding a plastic bag full of cash. He'd said, I borrowed it from a friend. Don't worry about paying it back. She realized now that the crumpled bills were fresh from his private vault, the serial numbers sequential. And this, Leo tossed another file at her. The words Sophia Reed, financial aid fraud, burn her eyes. You thought you seduced the student body president to get your position. He confessed last night. Chad paid him $50,000 to rig the vote. Chloe gasped and stumbled backward, knocking over the vanity. Lipsticks and powders scattered across the floor. In the shattered mirror, Sophia saw her carefully constructed mask of elegance crumble to dust. Just then, the announcer's voice boomed from the stage. And now, please welcome the heir to the Carter Corporation, Mr. Leo Carter. A spotlight cut through the backstage gloom, illuminating the family crest on Leo's blazer. The one she'd always dismissed as a cheap knockoff now gleamed with the cold light of platinum, perfectly matching the fire in his eyes. Sophia, he said, leaning down to grab her chin, his grip painfully tight. Do you know why I let you last this long? Because I wanted you to see this with your own eyes. He tapped the giant LED screen behind the stage. The image switched to a live feed of the Prescott Tower, swarmed by reporters. Remember your lines. Not that it matters anymore. I don't start fights I can't win. When you climb by stepping on other people's dignity, he continued, you forget that those at the top can send you back to hell with a flick of a finger. The distant wail of sirens grew closer. One last gift. He slapped a black card onto the broken mirror. A string of numbers was handwritten on the back. This will cover your mother's hospital bills. But remember, he turned to leave, his final words a chilling whisper. There's always a price. From now on, you're a slave to me and my fiancé. But first, go clean yourself up. And per my fiancé's request, you'll go to the athletic field and kneel and apologize 100 times. Sophia sat paralyzed amidst the debris as a thunderous wave of applause erupted from the auditorium. The face staring back at her from the shattered mirror was a mess of smeared makeup, looking just like the pathetic girl she'd once been, staring at a day-old sandwich in a convenience store. Some lights, she now understood, were never meant for her to touch. And the one light that had been willing to burn for her, she had extinguished it with her own 2 hands. The gala spotlights shattered against Sophia's hair. She clutched the diamond bracelet Chad had given her, her nails digging into her palm. On stage, the countdown clock hit 0, and now the host roared. Please give a warm welcome to our special guest, Mr. Leo Carter. A man in a flawless black suit walked onto the stage, the family crest on his cufflink glinting under the lights. Sophia's pupils shrank. It was the fleur-de-lis of the Carter Corporation, a symbol she had seen on the cover of Forbes countless times. A collective gasp went through the audience as people recognized the Patek Philippe on his wrist, the one-of-a-kind piece that had sold for $3 million at auction last week. "Hello, everyone. I'm Leo Carter," he said, his voice cool and steady. "Some of you might remember seeing me in the cafeteria last week with a plastic lunchbox. Tonight, I wanted to show you something a little different." The massive screen behind him lit up with a breathtaking drone shot of the Carter family estate, a sprawling, 1,000-acre property with a glass mansion reflecting the sunset. The view cut to an underground garage where, one by one, the lights came on, revealing a collection of over 100 limited-edition supercars. The camera finally settled on a Pagani with the license plate LC001, the same car she had seen Leo drive onto campus that morning. As for certain people, Leo's gaze swept over the audience and landed on her. Sophia's blood turned to ice. He snapped his fingers, and the screen switched to a security camera feed from a VIP club booth. The image of Chad forcing alcohol down her throat was sickeningly clear, her muffled cries audible under his mocking laughter. "Is that all you can handle? You think my money is for show?" "No." Sophia staggered backward, crashing into a decorative pillar. Chloe screamed from the crowd. "Sophia, is that you? You were with Chad." "Oh, it gets better," Leo said with a cold smile. The screen changed again, this time to a hospital hallway. Her own mother was on camera, brandishing a check at a nurse, her voice trembling with rage. "Where did this money come from? Why will my daughter take this kind of filthy money?" The auditorium erupted. Leo pulled a black card from his pocket and tossed it into the air. It glittered as it fell, landing perfectly on top of a champagne tower. "This card has quite a spending limit," he said, his eyes now on her pale-faced mother in the audience. "I was going to use it to help someone in need. But now," he paused, "I'd suggest you take a look at your daughter's bank statements. I'm sure Chad's tips were enough to buy all the nutritional supplements in Boston." "Leo, how would you do this to me?" Sophia screamed, running towards the stage, her heels clicking a desperate rhythm on the floor. She was losing her mind, trying to confront him, but his icy glare stopped her dead in her tracks. "Tell them," Leo commanded. "Tell them everything you know." He wouldn't just make Sophia confess her own sins, but the crimes of the Prescott family as well. "Yes, it was all my fault. Everything he showed you about Chad is true." Sophia's shriek cut through the stunned silence. The spotlight felt like an interrogator's lamp. She saw her mother in the VIP section, her hand over her mouth. She saw Chloe shrink away in horror. And she saw Leo, leaning against the edge of the stage, casually twirling a cufflink between his fingers. "Blood money." Leo laughed softly and snapped his fingers again. The screen now showed an infinitely looped, close-up shot of Chad dropping the white powder in her drink. Sophia stared at her own vacant expression on the screen, remembering the unexplained bruises she'd woken up with that morning. A wave of nausea hit her. "Please forgive me," she pleaded, stumbling forward, her heel getting caught in a crack on the stage. "I shouldn't have helped Chad trick you, but look, you're fine, aren't you?" I just want to save my mom." "Fine. This stupid woman has no idea I already died once because of her." The hatred between them could never be erased by a simple apology, Leo thought bitterly. "You're not sorry you were wrong." Leo's voice sliced through her excuses. "You're just sorry you got caught." "Leo, I really am sorry." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the stage, her dress pooling around her, revealing the fading bruises on her thighs. "I'll do anything. Please, just spare my mother and me." "Anything." Leo crouched down, gripping her chin and forcing her to meet his freezing gaze. "All right, Sophia." He stood up and took a few steps back. "Crawl to me, just like you and your friends planned for me to do. Crawl over here and beg." Dead silence. Someone's phone clattered to the floor, its screen brightly displaying the trending topic on the campus forum. #Sophia Reed crawls and begs. Sophia heard her mother's choked sobs and her own heart pounding in her ears. She stared at the fleur-de-lis emblem on Leo's shoes and remembered him kneeling in front of her in high school to tie her shoelace, his eyes still soft and full of warmth. "What's the matter?" Leo held up his phone. "Don't want to. I can make sure the whole world sees the rest of those videos with Chad." She bit her lip until she tasted blood, then placed her hands on the stage floor. Her nails scraped against the wood as she began to crawl forward. When his shoes finally came into view, she reached out, only to have him pin her hand to the floor with his foot. "Say, Daddy Leo, I was wrong." His voice, mixed with the crowd's jeers, was a blunt knife sawing at her eardrums. "Daddy Leo, I was wrong." Sophia's last shred of dignity evaporated. "Louder! We can't hear you." Someone whistled from the crowd. Sophia saw a girl standing backstage. It was Stella, wearing a simple white dress, a look of pity in her eyes. That look was more humiliating than any insult, because she knew Stella wasn't looking at a joke, but at an insect drowning in the mud. "Daddy Leo, I was wrong. Please forgive me." She finally screamed, tears and mascara streaming down her face and dripping onto his perfect shoe. Leo raised an eyebrow in satisfaction. He pulled a check from his pocket and let it flutter down onto her head. "That's for your mother's liver transplant. But remember this, from now on, your very existence in this city is a mistake." Sophia lunged forward, trying to grab him, but was gently pushed aside by Stella. The girl in the white dress stepped out from the wings. On her wrist was a simple silver bracelet that Leo had always claimed was a gift from his sister. "I'm his fiancée, Stella Thompson," the girl said, her voice clear and bright. She pulled a small, official-looking document from her pocket and waved it. "We just had our engagement ceremony in the Maldives last week. As for you," her finger traced a line on Sophia's trembling shoulder. "Do I need to remind you who it was that stole his diary from the library and changed the name Stella to Sophia?" The entire auditorium fell silent. Sophia remembered that day in her sophomore year of high school. She found his journal tucked inside a textbook and, consumed by jealousy, had carefully altered the name. Now, the memory burned behind her eyes, merging with the cold, hard stare Leo had given her since his return. "One last thing," Leo said, pulling a folded document from his jacket. The words, "Notice of Expulsion," were like daggers. "Given your involvement in campus bullying, document forgery, and conspiracy to inflict psychological harm, the university has decided," he paused, glancing at Sophia's stunned mother, "to expel you, effective immediately. All relevant evidence has been forwarded to the police." As the sirens wailed outside, Sophia finally collapsed. She watched Stella gently take Leo's arm. As their hands intertwined, she saw a pair of matching silver rings. He had bought a set for her at a street fair when they were 16, but she'd thrown hers in the trash, calling it cheap. "Do you know why I let you last this long?" Leo whispered in her ear. "Because I wanted you to see with your own eyes that when the real light appears, all the pathetic shadows are burned to ash." The curtain began to fall. As Leo and Stella walked away, hand in hand, Sophia heard people in the audience whispering. "I heard his fiancée is his childhood sweetheart. He even built an animal shelter in her name." News alerts pinged on her phone. The Prescott Tower was on fire. A final text from Chad came through. "Bitch, your whole family is going to die." Before the lights went out completely, she saw Leo and Stella's shadows stretch long across the stage, a distorted mirror image of her and Chad mocking Leo all that time ago. Karma had come for her. She had become the very thing she despised most. In the darkness, she curled into a ball, the notifications sound from the campus forum relentless. The top post was titled, #Leo Carter Crushes Campus Queen. The thumbnail was a meme of her on her knees, with the caption, "Revenge of the Simp." Tears hit the stage floor. She finally understood. Some lights were never meant for her, and the only one that ever was, she had put out herself, foolishly believing she could hold the sun in her hands instead. 5. Eternal repayment. The athletic field was bathed in the ghostly white light of the midnight moon. Sophia knelt in the center of the track, the cold dew on the grass seeping through her dress, a chill crawling up her spine. The clock tower chimed, and on the third stroke, she heard the roar of an engine. A black Pagani, like a beast emerging from the shadows, pulled up to the bleachers. Its headlights illuminated her ruined dress, now stained with grass. Leo leaned against the car door, her expulsion notice held loosely in his hand. Stella rolled down the passenger window and held out a digital recorder. "Let's begin, Ms. Reed. Or should I call you by your new title?" Felon. The taste of iron filled Sophia's mouth. She remembered the dean of students slapping the notice on his desk 3 hours ago, telling her, "The Carter Corporation has requested that your disciplinary action be made public." She remembered Chad's father screaming over the phone that if her filthy hands touched his son, her whole family would be living on the street. She remembered her own mother slapping her in the hospital hallway, the refunded $300,000 in cash hitting her chest, each bill feeling like a drop of Leo's blood. "First time, I, Sophia Reed, am trash." Before the words were fully out, 100 bright lights flashed on around the field. She looked up in horror to see the bleachers filled with students, all holding up their phones, live-streaming her humiliation to the campus forum. "Louder! We can't hear you," someone whistled. It was one of the boys who had jeered alongside Chad. The back of his phone case now read, "Leo Carter Fan Club. I, Sophia Reed, AM, trash." She screamed, a sharp pain shooting through her knees. Leo glanced at his watch, the diamonds on the bezel catching the moonlight. It was from the Eternal Fleur-de-Lis collection, one of only 3 in the world. "That's 50, Stella's voice called from the car. "Thirsty? I have some water for you." She held up a thermos. "Actually, it's that expired soy milk you threw out at the 7-Eleven yesterday. I had the clerk save it for you." A wave of cruel laughter rolled through the crowd. Sophia stared at the container, the memory of Leo always telling her don't eat things that have gone bad, of him secretly swapping her old bread for fresh sandwiches, of the antacids he always kept in his backpack for her. The memories were now daggers, twisting in her gut. 100th time. Her voice was a raw, broken rasp. Leo walked towards her and crouched down, forcing her to look up at him. "Remember what you told me? You said we weren't in the same league." "Well, now." He let go and tossed a business card at her. "This is a rejection letter from every top investment bank on Wall Street, along with a blacklisting notice I had sent to every major recruitment agency. From now on, whenever you apply for a job, the HR department will receive a copy of tonight's video." Sophia trembled violently. The signature on the card, Managing Director, Morgan Stanley Asia, burned her eyes. On the back was a screenshot of her kneeling, with the words, "Never hire," printed in bold red letters. "One last gift," Leo said with a snap of his fingers. A moving truck pulled up. Workers began unloading boxes, spilling their contents onto the grass. All of her prized possessions. The fake Hermes bags, the counterfeit Louboutins, the cubic zirconian necklace from Chad. Stella got out of the car, walked over in her simple canvas shoes, and lit one of the bags on fire with a lighter. "These fakes aren't even worthy of a real garbage can." The flames crackled in the night, illuminating Sophia's face, a mask of utter despair. She watched her entire world of carefully constructed lies burn to the ground. She pictured her mother, scrounging for wilted vegetables behind a supermarket. She saw the next 10 years of her life, her resume permanently stained with the word expelled. "Remember what I told you. You are our slave forever. Don't even think about killing yourself," Leo said, then turned to leave. He took Stella's hand. "Come on, I'll show you the new heated shelter I built for the stray cats." As the morning fog began to roll in, Sophia finally collapsed. Her phone rang. It was her mother, her hysterical sobs mixed with the sound of sirens. "Sophia, the house." They threw red paint all over the house. They wrote "Death to the whole family of scammers" on the walls. She looked at the pale, dawn sky and thought of that rainy day when she was 17, of the light in the eyes of the boy who had handed her his jacket. She knew now that some lights, once stomped out, become an eternal wildfire that consumes everything, and she would spend the rest of her life burning in the painful knowledge that she hadn't just looked down on someone's kindness, she had destroyed it. And in doing so, she had sentenced herself to a deeper abyss than she could have ever imagined. The Pagani's taillights disappeared into the sunrise. The top post on the campus forum was now, #Leo Carter clears the market for his fiancée. The accompanying photo was of Stella, holding a calico cat, the diamond on her ring finger perfectly complementing the wedding band on Leo's. The sun was rising, but for Sophia, the night was just beginning. 3 months later, the bankruptcy of the Prescott Corporation was the top story on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Leo stood by his office's floor-to-ceiling window, watching the crowds of creditors swarming the Prescott Tower. He ran a thumb over the fleur-de-lis embossed on the acquisition documents, the new Carter Corp logo he had designed himself. "Mr. Carter, the verdict for Chadwick Prescott is in," his assistant said, handing him a file. "Rape, drug trafficking, and organizing prostitution. Multiple charges, sentenced to 20 years in prison." Sunlight sliced through the blinds, casting a hard line across the words 20 years. Leo remembered Chad screaming at him from the defendant's stand, "Sophia was just a cheap bitch." "Are the arrangements at the prison confirmed?" Leo asked, taking a sip of black coffee. "Yes, sir," the assistant replied. "The warden you requested was a medic in a foreign mercenary group. He'll take good care of Mr. Prescott's special needs." An image flashed in Leo's mind. Chad, pinned to a concrete floor, his body covered in cigarette burns. He smiled, remembering the champagne Chad had poured over his head. 2 weeks later, Chad was found dead in the prison laundry. He had hanged himself with strips torn from his uniform. Before he died, he'd bitten his own finger and scrawled a message on the wall. "Leo, even as a ghost." Chadwick Prescott committed suicide, the assistant reported, placing a tablet on his desk. His father had a heart attack this morning. Didn't make it. On the screen, a live feed of the elder Prescott's memorial showed relatives already squabbling over the remaining assets. "Will you be attending, sir?" "No," Leo said, closing the feed. His eyes fell on a photo on his desk. It was of him and Stella at the animal shelter, bathed in sunlight. Some lights only needed to shine on those who were worthy. The penthouse office was dark, the city lights painting the skyline in strokes of blood red and neon. Leo lounged in his leather executive chair, watching the reflection in the glass. Sophia, dressed in a skimpy maid's uniform, was on her knees, scrubbing a wine stain from the carpet with a toothbrush. The back of her neck was a roadmap of purple and blue bruises from the belt he'd used on her the day before. "Harder," he said, swirling the Bordeaux in his glass. "You didn't show this much hesitation when you were throwing it in my face." Sophia's back went rigid. "Sir," she mumbled through a mask, "to get the stain out of the deep fibers, I need a solvent." "Who gave you permission to speak?" He dumped the entire glass of wine onto her back. It trickled down her spine, soaking into the cheap fabric. "Lick it clean, just like you did for Chad." Silence. He watched her shoulders tremble. She slowly pulled off her gloves, revealing swollen, red fingers. Then, she leaned down and began to lick the wine from the carpet. "How does it taste?" he asked, walking over and pressing the toe of his shoe onto the top of her head. "That bottle was $17,000. Enough for 3 of your mother's liver transplants. But now, you're not even worthy of polishing my shoes." The taste of wine and dust filled her mouth, and she fought back the urge to vomit. The humiliation was somehow worse than anything Chad had ever done, because she knew that this man, the one inflicting this torment, was the only one who had ever truly cared for her. "Leo," she finally choked out, "I've been your slave for 3 months. I sleep in a storage closet. I eat your leftovers. When will this end?" "When you die," he said, crouching down and forcing her to look at him. "Or when you can make me forget what it felt like to have you want me on my knees. And that, my dear, is never going to happen." His phone buzzed. A text from Stella. "Coming home for dinner? I made beef Wellington." Leo typed back, "On my way." As he stood, he kicked over the bucket of dirty water beside her. It splashed all over her face, mixing with her silent tears. "Remember," he said, grabbing his suit jacket, "tomorrow, you're on litter box duty for Stella's cats. If I find a single scratch on any of them," he paused, enjoying the terror in her eyes, "I'll have you transferred to a hospital in a war-torn country and let you experience what it really feels like to be waiting to die." The door slammed shut. Sophia collapsed into the puddle of filthy water. Outside, the city glittered, her reflection in the glass superimposed over Leo's departing silhouette. One in the gutter, one in the clouds, with an eternal, uncrossable chasm between them. Her fingers closed around the razor blade she had stolen from the bathroom that morning. She thought of Chad's end, of the nightmares of being dragged into the storage closet night after night. She pressed the blade to her wrist. Just then, her phone lit up. It was a live feed from Leo's security system. Her mother was sitting in a sunny garden, attended by a private doctor from the Carter Corporation. A text followed. Forgot to tell you. The medication your mother is on? It's a placebo. If you want her to live a little longer, you'll be a good dog and behave. The blade slipped from her fingers. Sophia stared out at the city lights and thought of that rainy day, of the light in the eyes of the boy who had handed her his jacket. She finally understood. Once extinguished, some lights become an eternal night, and she was doomed to spend the rest of her life paying for her sins in the endless, suffocating darkness. Later that night, sitting across from Stella, Leo watched her cut into the beef Wellington and thought of Sophia. She was probably cleaning litter boxes, or polishing his shoes, or locked in a storage closet. It didn't matter. What is it? Stella asked, handing him a napkin. Nothing, he said, taking her hand. Just thinking that everything, right now, is perfect. Outside, the rain began to fall in sheets. Leo knew that in some dark corner, Sophia was weeping. But in his world, the sun was always shining. Light and shadow would always exist. He was the master of the light, and he was the creator of a shadow.